Okay, quick reminder because this is big. For the first time ever, I'm opening up a free live workshop that was previously only available to my private one-to-one clients. And now I am hosting this for all corporate professionals looking to land their next dream roles without applying to hundreds of roles or being ghosted continuously by recruiters. I have been asked to run this session outside of HR for about a year, and I finally said yes. We're going live on February 26th, and this is your opportunity to learn the exact strategy that I use to help people land their dream roles across all corporate industries, from marketing, IT, communications, HR, all of those roles, and to finally start showing up as a top candidate in those interviews and land exciting offers. So if you're looking to land your next role in early 2026, this is for you. Swipe up and the link is in the show notes. I can't wait to see you there. Hello and welcome back to the Career Cravings podcast. Today, what you are going to hear is a leaked call from a coaching session that I recently had where people came on and they could ask me literally anything related to their job search. And I know if they have these questions come up, you will too. There were questions about resumes, about being ghosted, about knowing how to communicate with recruiters and what to say and what it means. And I can't wait for you to hear it. Hey, it's Irina Pozan, and welcome back to the Career Cravings podcast. This podcast has a simple mission. It's to help ambitious professionals like you build the career and life that you've been craving. Over the past 15 years, I've worked as an HR leader, designed hiring systems, led recruitment teams, and I've sat on the other side of the hiring table. I've seen what works in today's job market, what doesn't, and what separates those good candidates from the ones that actually land their dream roles. Now I'm bringing everything I've learned straight to you. Each episode is packed with actionable insights and tools to help you land your dream role sooner. Now let's dive in. Who is a brave soul that would love to go first? And when you ask your question, I'd love to hear how long you've been searching for and the type of role you're targeting. Jody, there you are. I knew it. I know you're looking for that ERP role. Remind me, how long have you been looking for? And then let me know what question you have.
I have been looking for 1 month. It's a short time. And my question is, I have a couple of agency from the recruitment agency contact me and also the in-house recruiter. But I'm just wondering because I have 4 years system end user experience and 5 years consulting experience. But yesterday I got an DM from LinkedIn. They want to have a phone call with me. But the post is 10 plus years of consulting experience. Should I go for it, or why they still contact me for this high position?
First of all, I want to say congratulations on landing so many different opportunities in such a short time. I know you've been looking for other things before and switched directions in the last month or so. And first of all, this would tell me, if we just look at your situation, that you are definitely qualified for those roles that they reach out to you for, right? A recruiter, they don't have a lot of time these days. They have a ton of applicants. They would not reach out to you if they didn't believe you were qualified. So I know it says 10 plus years, but what you told me is you have 5 years here, 4 years here. Together, that is 9. So what I would say is all of those 9 years that you have transferable skills in there. So what I would challenge you to do is, first of all, absolutely hell yes, you're going to that conversation. Even if it doesn't end up being a fit, there are so many benefits to having conversations. First of all, you're going to grow your network. You're going to make a new connection. You never know, even if this isn't the role for you, where that recruiter will be even in a couple of months from now. And this is a really great connection just to go and have a conversation. They're not speaking to many people, so definitely go. Your chances are good already. They obviously love your profile and think you're qualified. But then the other mindset piece, I want you to think of all of your 9 years as all of your experience. It doesn't matter that 4 was in this and 5 was in this. I want you to look at it holistically, because these are things, these are skills and success stories that you've built throughout your career, and they follow you. They don't stop just because you took these ones were in consulting and these ones weren't. So I would challenge you to really get in that mindset before you have the conversation to be like, I am checking that box. I have that 9 years of experience. They're looking for 10. It's literally the same thing. And then when you're making your first impression, I'm going to assume because they contacted you, they are the ones that are going to be telling you more about the opportunity. I'm sure that's typically how it works. But then they're going to ask you, like, tell me a little bit more about you because they've never met you before. And that's where I would really challenge you to prepare a response that is very confident in the fact that you have worked in consulting before, you have a ton of experience. Think of your top 5 stories that relate to your consulting experiences, your biggest wins in consulting, and make these areas things from their job description if you were able to get one, if they sent that to you in advance. So I think for you, literally the most important thing is getting your mindset right ahead of this conversation and no longer questioning, should I be here? Should I go? No. Yes, girl, they contacted you. So kill it and then report back.
Thank you so much, Irina.
You're so welcome. Let's go to Shamama, then Eva. I see you next. We'll go there and then come back to Christine.
Hello.
Hello. I'd love to know, what role are you targeting and what question do you have? How can I support you?
So I'm looking for a role as an HR BP or as a manager currently. So I moved to Canada like a 1.5 year ago. And it was a very long struggle because I was looking for roles in HR, but I couldn't get any. So I got a role at Samsung as a sales enablement specialist, which is a completely different role. But now that I'm looking into like transition back into HR, I really want to understand because people do reach out to me and they do kind of door and pivot it into a different career set. So I don't know if I should be showing that on my resume or like how she's structured when I'm giving an interview as to why I want to transition back, because I don't want to look like the person who's not committed to what they're doing.
But your specific experience, how many years in HR do you have previously to when you started sales?
I have 6.5 years of experience in HR, majorly as an HR BP.
Perfect. So it's like the title to the HR BP roles that you're exploring. Fantastic. And then how long have you been in sales?
I've been in sales for 7 to 8 months. It's 8 months now.
Amazing. Okay, good. And then would you say is super transferable from your current sales experience at a top huge organization to HR? What do you think is similar? I know it's a different function, of course, but what would be similar in your eyes?
I feel the reason that I got this job was because I had a lot of transferable skills from HR, like dealing with people, data, and like being hands-on with a lot of softwares. So that is something that obviously that they really did look into. And also my fluency with Excel, with numbers, because I was doing benefits and payroll at one time. So that is something that they saw the vision that I could probably take on this role and achieve this. So I think these would, and also negotiation at my end.
Okay, good. And I know you're asking me the question and we're going to get to a response for you, but why do you want to get back into HR? Like, why is that into you now?
Honestly, when I was moving to Canada, I thought that I'll take it as a fresh start and I'd probably look into some other career or venture into something else because I've been doing HR for so long. But honestly, 8 months out of HR and I really want to go back in. And I miss doing what I was doing. I miss those interactions. I miss creating a culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. I think you have a lot of your answer formulated right there. And the way I'd like to think of it is any recruiter, myself included, I'm sure many of the people in this room, including yourself, if you were interviewing someone who has your career path in your resume, they would, of course, be asking that question. And they're not asking it from a negative place. At the point of the question, it's completely neutral. And then it's up to you and the way that you answer it, whether or not then it ends up being a red flag. Like they're like, maybe she doesn't love HR. Or they end up understanding your circumstances and just moving you forward. The really great sign is like the fact that you're having interviews for HR roles when your current and most recent job title isn't that, right? So the way I would structure that answer, I would expect it, first of all. I would expect it every freaking time. And actually, for everyone on this call, whatever it is that you're the least confident about in your profile, think about the thing that you're the least confident about. And that's where I want you to spend a lot of the time preparing for that question because a good recruiter is going to dig into that. Okay. And for you, Shima, specifically, I would tell your story. So first, I want to start with the most transferable, most positive aspect. So this is where you're starting out with a confident statement that literally links back to the fact that you were already an HRBP. This is not a stretch. This is not new for you. And I would say 6.5 years in HR, these years were incredible. Most recently, I joined a top organization. I would say I took a great opportunity to grow at a great organization. But now, 7 months later, I realize I'm ready to go back to my roots. I'm ready to go back into HR and really thrive as an HR business partner. In the last 7 months, I've stretched myself. I've gained new skills working with people in a different way. And you could just say, now I'm ready to get back to my roots. Make it clear that you are committed to HR for the rest of your career, right? Because I think when a recruiter is trying to assess if this is a red flag or not, what they're trying to see is, are you going to leave HR again? If they give you this role, are you going to go back to sales? Like, why did you do that? Especially you're making a first impression. They actually don't want to hear the sob story of how hard it is. They freaking know this. Like, they're not new, right? They know what the job market is. They don't want you going on about how challenging it was and this, and that's why you had to take a role that you weren't really into. That makes much less, although both things are true. You love HR. You can't wait to get back in. Samsung is an incredible organization where I'm sure you learned a lot. It's also true that it was hard to get into HR immediately, but I wouldn't lead with that response because it's not as compelling of a story. And it points out an additional blind spot that you don't really have to highlight for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because one of the benefits of your profile is not the fact that you're new to the country. It is not the fact that you've never worked in HR in Canada, as an example. The benefits of your profile are that you have 6.5 years in HR. You have done an HRBP role before, and HR is HR, right? So focusing in on those, highlighting those strengths is the approach that I would take when answering that question, and practice this question out loud. I would practice it as much as your answer for tell me about you, because they're going to be wondering like, hey, why are you in sales now? What's going on? And no, I wouldn't take it off your profile because then you're going to be answering another question, which is, hey, why do you have a gap? And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to hide. You're working for an incredible company. It has brand recognition and you're still landing interviews, right? So don't change what's not broken. Okay. Is that helpful?
Okay. Yes, very much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Eva, hello.
Hi, Irina. Thank you for hosting this today. I really appreciate it. I just had a couple questions for you, just to give you some background. I've been in the HR space for about 5 years. I have my CHRP. I am currently working on my MBA. I finish up next month. Done my due diligence, I feel like, in that space. But unfortunately, my company went through a restructuring and my role was impacted. And so now I am in this position of I'm not quite sure how to approach my search a little bit, and because the market is a little soft, and how aggressively I should be approaching it, but how I should tackle the next bet I make.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay. But what is your goal? Because I have clients that sometimes they've gone through the exact same situation, but sometimes they're like, I want to take the next 3 months off. I want to be with my kids. I want to travel, whatever it is. And then I want to start job searching because it's not as much of a priority at this moment. Others are like, I need to be hired tomorrow, pay my bills. So there's like very different spectrums, and it depends on what you're really looking for. So keeping in mind that it can take up to 9 months, sometimes longer. So what are your goals in terms of like when ideally would you like to be in your next role?
Yeah, I would say I think it's fair. I've reflected about that a little bit as well. And I think I would like to look right away. I think I don't have children, transparently. And so I enjoy working. It's something I'm passionate about HR, about the industry. And I've been working a lot on like career progression or like what that looks for me. So I think for me, I'm ready to get back into the market like pretty fast.
Amazing.
But I do have a bit of flexibility in terms of like timing. That's the piece that I'm working through now.
Amazing. And I love that there isn't this immediate pressure either, because that can sometimes add a lot of like mindset challenges if you're like, I need a role right now. And then sometimes that energy, that more needy energy will come through in the interviews too, which we don't want. Okay, amazing. So where are you at? You know exactly what you want. Like where to support you in terms, what is your next step?
Yeah, I would say, so I'm looking for recently HRBP. That was my role. I would like to stay at that level. I guess the question I have is, should I be exploring like generalist roles as well? Like in some companies, I know we can take a step down, or should I firm and, okay, I need to be looking at that AGP level or manager, or I'm also exploring potentially consulting. I haven't worked in that space before, but I would like to maybe try to enter there as well.
Okay, amazing. And would you be excited? I have 5 years of experience. Your most recent title has been business partner, which is freaking amazing. You're graduating with your MBA, freaking amazing, like all great things. What would get you excited? Like I first heard you say HRBP, but they're like, should I apply also to generalist? Would you be excited to take a generalist role and to stay in for the longer term?
Yeah, I think it depends on the company. I like both role. Like I was a generalist before this. It was the next progression. I enjoy this role because it is very broad and general, to be honest. Like it touches different pieces. That was how it was structured. And so that's why I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know if like would that look like bad if I were to shift back to that function?
It depends on what your goals are. So the first thing I'll say is a title. Like some companies will call an HRBP and another company, it's literally the identical role and it's a manager. And then at another one, it's a generalist. So then really not that consistency. And it sounds like what I would do is get really clear on what would be the ideal role and keep that in mind. So if you're saying, let's say a top company, it's important to you to be working at like a top employer, a global huge brand. And then with that, you're okay with having the generalist title, then go for it. So you might be very selective. What I would do is also then filter on like mid-level roles. That's what you're qualified for at this point, right? So just go with what feels exciting. And applications do not mean you have to accept that role. You might be in a position where you end up with multiple offers. And then you get to choose which offer, which company, like the whole package, which one sounds more exciting to you. Now, if you're someone who's ambitious and you tell me in the next 2 years, my goal is actually to be a leader, then I would say if you take a generalist title, that may make it more challenging. So keep your long-term goals in mind. Hopefully, I think what I would do is like that clarity, right? What would get you excited? And don't make decisions from the place of, oh, I was just laid off. I should take what I can get. And don't make decisions from, it's a shitty job market. I'm just going to take whatever comes along. You're a great candidate. Keep that in mind. Apply to everything that's interesting to you, whether it's consulting generalist or HRBP. You don't have to accept any of these offers if they come your way, right? You could assess, see how it fits in with your long-term vision and see how it goes. But I would just start filtering on like that level and see what that looks like.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think a similar kind of trajectory than leadership is where I see myself the road. And so like a blip in the path, but I agreed the way I was balancing that.
Okay. So that in mind, now that I said titles aren't everything because they could be the same role. But for you with that goal in mind, what will happen if you do accept a generalist role is when you start applying for manager roles, you're going to have a harder time hearing back. Okay. Because then it's in most organizations that be multiple levels different. So they will likely, when I think of callback rates, people call people back that have similar titles. So for you applying to HRBP roles, you were just an HRBP a minute ago, you're a perfect fit, right? This isn't a stretch. So knowing that, I would try to target the roles you really want with a little bit more of that like senior title aspect while keeping in mind other great opportunities, keeping in mind your long kind of visions. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Kristen, I see your hand up before we go to Krishna. Krishna, hello. I'd love to know where I can support you. What's your question?
Yes, thank you, Irina. So I think it was great meeting you the last time as well at Redefined.
Cody was there too. You guys should connect.
Yeah, so I've been applying since mid-August this year. So around literally August 15, August 16. And I've applied to around 800 to 1,000. And I think that's...
Ooh, you've been busy.
I think that's a conservative number. And I've received around 4 or 5 interviews out of that. And some of them are of jobs that I, first of all, maybe didn't want as much. Some of them were more like sales related jobs rather than HR and LR related jobs. And out of those 3 or 4 interviews that I got, I didn't succeed past the second round. For example, just day before yesterday, I had a second round of interviews for an internship position. So it was a paid internship. It wasn't even a proper full-time job. It was promising that after the internship term that I would get the job. And even that, they said, sorry, we went with somebody who was more qualified. So I was just a bit confused. I'm like, it was an HR type internship, mobility. And so long story short, I just feel like no matter how many job applications I do, I feel like my resume may not be getting to the right people, or it's not sitting, or it's not showing up where I want it to.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit confused about that. And I think some people here have come recently to Canada, but I've been here for the last 9 years. So
Yeah, that's not even a concern at this point.
all my formal education is in Canada. So that's around 9 years of post-secondary education in Canada, 4 to 5 years of combined work experience in HR, EDI, post-secondary institutions, nonprofit organizations. And yet I'm still struggling to even get 10 interviews.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry to hear how it's going. 3 months and 1,000 applications is exhausting. That's a lot. So it's not a volume issue. I love to know the numbers, and thank you for being so data driven and sharing that, because it really helps to paint the picture of it is not a lack of effort on your part. Absolutely not. But you hit the nail on the head when you're asking your question in terms of, I think my resume isn't working. That is absolutely true, because you have really tested it. You've tested it for 3 months, which is a long period of time. And you've also tested it with just the volume of applications. And you know you're qualified because of your experience and so forth. So with that, your resume is not working for you. That would be the biggest challenge to solve here. Secondary, you mentioned you had a couple interviews, like 3 or 4, and then they didn't pass the second stage. So what I'm hearing there is like you made a good first impression in the conversation because they invited you back. But then after that, didn't move you to final stages or that offer stage, obviously, which is the goal. So that I would focus a little bit less on right now. Of course, can all of us improve our interview skills a little bit more to improve those metrics yes, but your number one focus should be to actually today, stop the applications, okay? You've submitted 1,000. There's many resumes in the pipeline for you, right? You have been super consistent with that. You need to take a step back at this point and think about how can you transform your resume in alignment with your target role. So I'm hearing just due to the situation, you're applying to all of these different intern levels, sales roles, like all of these different things. I don't want you to do that anymore. I want you to, instead of that spray and pray approach, I want you to be strategic with how your resume aligns with your target role. Remind me, how many years in HR do you have total, roughly?
I think around 4 years.
Okay, fantastic. So 4 years, similar to Eva, 5 years, mid-level type roles. I would actually filter on those HR, LR roles that you mentioned you're interested in. So you're going to see titles like generalist. What was your most recent title in HR?
I was a recruitment specialist for Toronto Metropolitan University.
Okay, good. So obviously anything like that, recruitment specialist, HR generalist, HR coordinator, HR BP, like all of those roles that are exciting to you, HR advisor. And I'd get more specific to those roles. And then I would think about, okay, that's your target role. So if you have like a Venn diagram, we're going back to now, but it's like in one circle, you have the target role, which is mid-level HR role. You're going to start to notice it's the same competencies on 90% of the job descriptions. They're going to want you to have some experience in recruitment, which you have, maybe onboarding. You're going to see the same things over and over again, recruitment, onboarding, building relationships with clients, employee relations, maybe labor relations for some of those roles. So you're going to see those things over and over again. And then I would think about you in the other circle. Okay. So it's like your experience of years in HR, your education. What do you bring to the table that's most aligned with that mid-level HR role? Not specifically for one application. Look at it more broadly. In general, what are these competencies that keep coming up over and over again? And then I want you to completely redesign your resume from scratch because you know you've tested this one. It's not like spend another minute using it and transform it to align with that target role and stop applying to the sales stuff. Internships, you're overqualified. It's going to be hard for you to land an internship at this point because you're overqualified. You're just more aligned to maybe a generalist role, right? Or a recruitment specialist role. So really focus in on who you'd be a great candidate for. And then even if you drop the number of applications you're submitting, your response rate will go up the more you're aligned with that. And if you need help with that, obviously that's what I do for a living. So feel free to reach out and I can support you through that. But you've tested it on your own. Don't continue to invest time in that.
I just had one other question regarding the resume. My last professional experience was as a teaching assistant when I was at Queen's University. I understand that it was an organizational behavior, but at the same time, I know it isn't an HR role. It's more of an education role. Is that something that I should have at the top of my resume because of looking at it at a chronological order? Or should it be one of my HR roles at the top so that it catches the eye of a recruiter?
Yes. So most recent job title is a factor, like we just mentioned. It just is. Like recruiter, you were a recruiter yourself. So I'm sure when you're hiring for a role, you're going to go first with the people that have the matching job title. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be that way, but it is. So you have a decision to make. If you've tested it one way where the role in academia was first and that hasn't gotten you a response, you can test it the other way because there is no sort of right answer. So if you were a client and I looked at all of your experience, we would of course like do that together. But without having all of the information, I'll say there is no right answer. If you've tested it a lot one way, try the other way because you don't have to list your most recent experience first. You can go with either recent or relevant. So sometimes I'll have clients that have a ton of super relevant experience, but then most recently they were up to something else.
Yeah.
So we switch it up, right? And it depends on a number of factors. But think about that. If you've already tested it, you can also A/B test. So with your new resume, you can have one version that has that role first because it's most recent, or you can have it at the end that says additional experience and see which one gets you the better response rate. What I would say is in either decision that you take, you want to make sure your HR experience is on the first page for sure. Many people never look at the second page, so I don't want them to miss out on like your most relevant competencies. And even with role in academia, like to your point, there's OD, there's probably the coaching side, there's a lot of transferable skills there. So I wouldn't have too many points on the role, but I would make sure they're all super like OD or very aligned to HR, the points that you do include.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Zubin, am I pronouncing your name right? I totally could be butchering that.
That's correct. Hi, Irina. Thank you for hosting this, first of all, and thanks for inviting me to this. So I have recently moved to Canada. It's been about 3 months, and that's when I started my job search here. A very brief background. I started off my career on the business front. So I've experienced corporate strategy consulting and business development. And then I pivoted my career towards human resources, where I started off with what they call a center of excellence role in L&D, leadership development and talent management and OD. And then I also did a role as a sales and marketing HRBP. So that's the background. Yes, my most recent experience has been the HRBP role. And before that, it was the L&D and TM role. The challenge I have been facing here is that first of all, I have several versions of my resume and I try to tailor it to every job description or job that I apply for. It's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, but I somehow figured it's better than going in for volumes and applying to several roles using the same resume. So my first question is that the right approach? It doesn't seem to be working because even after all the tailoring, I haven't received a single response based on online applications. The other is I have managed to get a handful of interviews. They've all been through referrals. Amazing. However, a couple of these were for HRBP roles. And in both of these interviews, I was told that my skills, my qualifications, all of that is great. But unfortunately, they want someone who has experience in the Canadian industry, especially with Canadian labor laws. So again, my second question is, should I not be targeting HRBP roles at this point? And would a certification help? So should I invest in that?
So for your first question about tailoring your resume to each application and it being exhausting and it taking time, this is a controversial opinion. And most coaches don't say this. 0% of my clients tailor their resume to each and every job application because it's a complete waste of time. When I told you about that Venn diagram kind of example where you look at the you have versus the competencies of your target role, that's the way to design a resume that's aligned with your target role. You will never, ever need to update it based on a single application. It'll be in this market just too much time, like you mentioned, and it's not getting you the results anyway. So there is 0 point in doing that. What you should be doing is designing that one resume through the resume transformation that's actually going to get you that 10% response rate or higher. Okay. And at this point, I have had hundreds of clients that are new to the country. So just to inspire you with what's possible, I have had so many clients that literally have been where you are, where they literally have had 0 responses, but they all share their stories. And I share this on the podcast and on my website and so on. Semaine was new to Canada. She literally applied for months and months, heard nothing back for any roles. And then she landed 2 offers, one of which was for the manager level as her first role in Canada. Ayushi also moved countries. She used one resume. She wasn't updating it. So I just want you to have the confidence. You don't need to do that. She landed multiple offers in 30 days. Upsana, if you'll hear her at the masterclass, she joined just to talk about her story, but she ended up not hearing anything for 12 months before she joined HR Star. And then she ended up landing 2 offers in, I think it was 2 months. Said Hannah, same thing. It's just endless. This is another example of Shrey. He's never had a director role in any country ever. He was working a minimum wage job, not hearing back for opportunities. And then he ended up landing a director role in 60 days. None of these people needed to update their resumes. They needed a better strategy. They needed a resume that's actually aligned with the target role that's working for today's job market. So again, if you need support with that, I am super happy to do that. Just message me afterwards. But that's to answer and to give you confidence that like this happens often. It is more challenging to land a role. You've only been here a couple months, but you have the experience and it's just about getting your resume noticed, and updating your resume for each and every role it's not serving you. You've tested it. Right. So it's like you could be like, okay, I think today is the day to stop.
The other one that I asked was for an HRBP role, should I stop targeting that because I don't have Canadian experience in that, or I don't have certifications?
Oh, yes, the certifications. No, you shouldn't stop targeting it because sometimes you're overqualified for entry-level roles. So I've had clients, I didn't show her story, but another client, Nikita, she was targeting entry-level roles, even though back home she was business partner. It wasn't working. So when she came to me, she's like, I can't even land entry-level interviews. Like, of course, I'm not going to apply to more senior. But when we looked at her profile, and I don't have your full profile, obviously, but when we looked at it, I was like, of course, you're not hearing back for entry-level roles. You're completely overqualified, even though she has never worked in Canada before. So sometimes you're overqualified for the entry-level roles. And many organizations, I've literally helped hundreds of people land their first roles in a new country. Sometimes that's not the number one thing that they're looking for, the Canadian experience. And that's how they end up landing the role. Look at Shrey, literally 0 Canadian experience, ends up landing a director role, right? He wasn't even he was actually targeting HRBP roles. So the answer is no, you don't have to apply to entry level. And then to your part 2 of your question with the certifications, it depends on the profile. So if you do have the opportunity to go and even start working towards your CHRP, whether it's taking a couple courses right now from a college and start working towards it, that in your case might be beneficial. So I don't want you to pause your search just because you're working towards your CHRP. But as soon as you start working towards it, then on your resume, you can write that it's in progress, which is really cool. Okay. This won't be like a top requirement, but it's a definitely to have for you when next time they ask you, hey, can you tell me about your Canadian employment law experience? You'll know exactly how to answer that. And you'll have a little bit more information about that, about how gaining that. You don't have to complete it before you start applying, and you don't even have to like invest all your money towards taking 8 at a time or anything like that. Have some balance. And even if you finish it in 2 years from now, cool, it's already in progress. And you might want to start with, if employment law is the biggest gap that you're seeing, start with that course first. All right, let's go to Kevin. Kevin, how can I support you?
Oh, hi, Irina.
Hey, good.
Yeah, it's great for you to have this with us. I guess my question is, since I haven't had HR experience, I've taken a HR program, of course. I have applied for so many entry-level jobs. I consider, I would say 1 to 2 years as appropriate in terms of my education and transferable skills.
Sure.
And I've just been doing anything that I can to get myself in the door and just hope for the best at the end of the day. So I was just curious to know, is there like other strategies for those who would be just entry level that are trying to get their first door into HR?
Okay. So entry level, it's one of those where every single person on this call, we all had someone give us our first opportunity without us being super experienced or experienced at all. So it is more challenging to land an entry level role than sometimes it is to actually land like a CHRO role, just because there's so many more people at that level than there are people that are qualified for the most senior roles. Where I would want you to go next is really take a step back and assess how your resume is working for you. So I know you have a couple of years of transferable experiences. Amazing. That's what you're going to focus on the most. You have your HR education, which is amazing. Now, the other thing with your kind of profile is you might want to take on HR, even unpaid work at this point, to just add an HR title. So you might want to volunteer for internships. I know there's a couple of like organizations that take unpaid internships. Like we can get additional HR to really beef up the resume from the HR front. And that's all that you could do while continuing to apply. But I think when we look at the top of the call for 4 steps, definitely the place for you to focus on is recreating a resume that actually lands you interviews. And it is possible. I help entry-level people all the time. So it happens all the time with a resume that does work with the right interview skills as well. Someone's got to give you an opportunity because they believe that you are the right person that can do the job, although you don't have years of HR experience. And there's people that are looking for that all the time.
I was just kind of curious too. Should I apply for jobs that aren't specific to HR, but do have the specific skills?
If you're trying to get into HR, I wouldn't. It's just going to fail you from your goal, but feel free to reach out to me afterwards. Okay. All right, Ernie, tell me Cole's notes. What can I help you with? What role are you targeting and how can I support you?
Hi, good morning, Irina. Good morning, everyone. Quick question. One of the things I'm running into is that I'll be contacted by a recruiter for a position.
Amazing.
I know more about that position than the recruiter does.
Yeah.
I'm having to ask leading questions, and I come from a payroll and HR background. So
Okay.
I'm asking from both sides of the aisle. How many people do they support? What pay frequency are they on? All the typical questions that you would ask to rein in to be able to make an honest decision. And I feel like all I'm doing is I'm educating them.
Okay,
and
I'm going to help
you.
you.
It drives me up the wall.
Of
It's
course.
like, you should have this information before you even contact me.
Okay, I have a mindset.
How do we work it?
Yes. Okay, so your goal is not to raise the recruiter's game, but your goal is to move on to the second or next interview stage with someone who is going to have a lot more information for the questions that you need answers to. Now, you are asking, like you said, great questions about the role itself. What's the day-to-day like? How is this and how is that? And you're going deep into what this role looks like. And I will challenge you to think about your audience. So your audience at that phone screen stage is a recruiter. They might have, I'm just guessing, but like a quarter of the experience that you do. And then also just keeping in mind the recruitment function, sometimes they literally don't know the role. Like sadly, should they know all of the details? But they might have the job description and they might not understand the day-to-day function of the role. So keeping in mind your questions, what I would do is segment your questions for the recruiter. And I'm going to give you some questions you can ask at that stage. But your really good questions that you're asking about the details of the role are actually only aimed for the hiring manager at the next interview stage once you make it there. Because you're going to continuously be frustrated if you're asking questions they can't answer like you are, just because they don't know. When you're speaking to a recruiter, you want to ask questions about getting the information that you need in order to succeed at the next interview stage. So I would just assume that you're making it to the next interview. And I would ask questions like, what are the top 3 competencies that the hiring manager is looking for in this role? Say they're telling you it's payroll, say they're telling you it's on the HR ops side, whatever that is, write them all down. Okay, so that's a really good one. But additional questions. And your goal is really, you can't educate them. You're not going to change them. You're not their leader. And if they don't know, they don't know. But how can you extract information that's strictly going to help you know what the hiring manager is looking for so that you can prepare for the next interview in the most efficient way And then at the next, save your really detailed questions for that hiring manager stage once you make it through, right? Because your goal is to really connect with the recruiter so they feel comfortable to recommend you to the next stage.
I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm also asking some of those questions to make sure that I'm not wasting my time on a position that really is not my fit.
Okay. I'm going to be a little challenging here. Well, what I would say is that is your priority once you're at like the final interview stage. At this point, won't have an offer yet, and your only goal is to make it to the next interview stage. I know you don't want to waste your time like no one does, but I would think your goal is to move forward so that you can continue to gain more information to make that decision throughout the interview process. Throughout the interview process, you might have 5 interviews, let's say total, before an offer. But when you get into that too early at the phone screen stage, and you're not talking to the person that would really be able to like help you make that decision, you're never going to have enough information to make that. So hold off, save all of that for assuming that you're going to get to the final interview, and you're dating them all the way along. You're asking more questions and getting more information, getting more data. At this point, you don't have an offer on the table to have to make the decision on whether or not you want to work there. I would say continue with the conversation and learn more along the way. And hopefully by the end of it, you're presented with an offer, and then you can even ask even more questions, right?
One quick thing for everybody, find people that will be in your corner during this time.
Yes.
It's really rough.
These are your people right now. You know what? That's a beautiful message to end off at, because the job search process can be very lonely. You feel like you're the only one going through it. You're the only one speaking to these people. It's frustrating. There's rejection. And you are often in your immediate circle, your family, your friends. They might not be in that stage right now to really be able to understand fully everything you're going through. The people here are all going through it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here to some degree. Okay. The other thing is we're going to end off. Thank you all for your participation. I'm grateful that you're here, and I hope that even other people's answers and questions gave you additional support that you need. As an additional free resource, there is the Career Cravings podcast. I talk about all this stuff, Ernie, the mindset stuff, staying motivated when it's hard, facing the rejection, keeping going, staying resilient, all of that stuff, as well as the resume tips, the interview tips, all of the things. And if your question didn't get answered, literally just email me, or if we're on LinkedIn together, DM me. Okay? Thank you all so much for being here, and wishing you so much luck in your search. Hey, before you go, if you've enjoyed listening to today's show, I would love your support. Please take a moment to leave a review anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And here's the exciting part. I'm running a special contest and giving away a one-on-one session with yours truly. All you have to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, and send it to me in my DMs. All of my contact info is in the show notes. I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to build the career and life that you've been craving together. See you next week.